I'm Jenn Drummond. Welcome to Seek Your Summit. As a mom, a business owner, and the first female to climb the 7-second summits, I realize that the mountains we climb are a part of our success, and it is up to us to go beyond that success into a life of significance. Listen in as I share personal stories and interview others who have led a life of both success and significance, and now they are paying it forward. Today, I have Emily Burney on the podcast. And I'm so excited because I kind of girl stalked her for quite a few years. She makes the famous chocolate chip cookies and banana bread that I always talk about and post to you guys about. And she just runs an amazing business here in Park City. So I wanted to share her insights, tips, and tricks because she's got a lot of them. So Emily, thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. And thank you for that really kind introduction.
It's so true though, right? Like I love seeing women succeed. And you're one of those women that like ground up, baby. You did it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely feels like I'm still doing it. You know, it definitely feels like, yeah, it's just kind of like a grind, truly.
Yeah, it is a grind.
Yeah.
But it's our passion, right? Like we couldn't imagine ourselves doing anything different.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I moved to Park City and you were already here.
No way.
Yeah, you got here before me, I'm pretty sure. I was 2015.
Okay. So I moved here in 2010 and started the business in 2014.
Okay. And where did you move from?
I had kind of bopped all over. I was born and raised outside of Chicago.
Oh, okay. Midwest.
And I was, yeah, I know.
Yeah, we have that.
Represent,
Yay.
I know. And so I always just kind of felt like a fish out of water living in the Midwest. My parents were really good about like showing us other places. One of the trips that we often took was like a family road trip to Colorado. And every time I made it to the mountains, I was like, oh my gosh, this is just like the life I want to live. And so I didn't make it out west for college, but I did spend my college summers as a raft guide in Colorado.
No way.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of showed me like, okay, at least there's an alternative path to just kind of like the corporate world in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And that kind of opened the door to life in Park City.
Okay, so you moved in 2010, and what did you move here for?
I moved here for a job on ski patrol at the resort that was known as the Canyons at the time.
Right. Okay. And so when you told your parents, because I'm from the Midwest, and you said, hey, I'm moving to Park City to be a ski patroller, how was that received?
Horribly.
I can only imagine.
I definitely broke the ice when I was like, I am not returning to my dad's law office to work as a summer intern. I am going to go be a raft guide in Colorado. And up until like they left me at the airport, they were like, what can we do to convince you to do anything else? So like they definitely had kind of been like, okay, Emily is going to go out west, get this out of her system, and then come back to the Midwest. So a couple different things happened. One, my parents were really conventional. Like you lead this very nuclear Midwestern life. That's the only way. However, in 2008, my dad was in real estate and my parents kind of like lost everything.
A lot. Yes, but everybody did back then.
Yeah. And so the idea that like this traditional path is the only way to stability kind of like was fractured for them. And so suddenly they were a little bit more accepting of an alternative path.
Wow. That gave me goosebumps.
Aw. Yeah. And it's kind of cool the way that like something that at face value can be so bad can have like a very positive impact on both my parents and obviously my life too.
Yeah, no, I think all of us, right? Our pain becomes our purpose, or it allows opportunity for other things to show up.
Totally.
So are you an only child?
No, I have an older brother who definitely followed in the family footsteps. He is still a lawyer, or he is still in Chicago and a lawyer.
Thank you for taking one for the team.
I know. He has kids, parents and grandparents. And he's still in the same town that we grew up in. He moved back there when they had a family. And then I have a little sister who's in Seattle.
Okay. Okay, so she got out a little bit. Because it's hard to escape the Midwest vortex. If you know, you know. And if you don't, I can't even begin to explain it. But it's
totally.
there.
Yeah, like generations of my family are still in the same town that I grew up in. And I love it. I see why people stay, but I just had this pull to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay, so were you a full-time patrol when you first came here?
Yes. So that was the job that was like the concrete thing to do that brought me to Park City, gave me a purpose. It left my winters fully employed, but my summers completely unemployed. Right. So I was kind of trying to scramble to think like, what can I do to fill them? The first summer I moved to Stanley, Idaho to work in a bakery because I had this kind of like idea my whole life of like, I really want to open a bakery, but there was no roadmap for it.
So you, like, as a little kid, you wanted to open a bakery?
So,
because you like to bake always.
Yeah, it's like, it all started in 3rd grade. My teacher did this lesson with our last names that said, look at your last name. It probably was an indicator of what your ancestors did. And my last name is Burney. So I was like, we probably burnt things. We probably baked
I'm from
things.
water, so that's awesome. Okay.
So I was like, oh my gosh, they were probably bakers. And I was like, that would be such a cool job. So I like always had this as an idea. But like I said, like my conventional parents were not encouraging me to go to culinary school. They were encouraging me to go to journalism school. And so when I had my summer times open, I started kind of pursuing that path. And that took me to Stanley, Idaho to work in this fabulous bakery still called the Stanley Baking Co. At the same time, I fell in love with a man who was in Park City. And so I moved back here for my job on ski patrol the following winter.
Yep.
The next summer after that, I worked at the Deer Valley Bakery.
Yeah.
And just kind of kept like, is it cutting your chops?
Yeah. Right. Totally.
Just gaining experience, gaining confidence. And I loved both of those jobs, but I really desired like a little bit more creative expression. And so in 2014, after being in Park City for 4 years, I started my own like very, very part-time 1 day a week at the Park City Farmers Market bakery business. I didn't know what to call it. I was like, I'll call it Auntie M's. And I mean, you could say the rest is history, but there has been so much between here and there.
Yeah, which we're going to get into. So when you opened at the farmer's market in 2014, what were you selling all your products that you sell now? Or did you lead with one major? Okay.
Pretty much just cookies. And cookies were like, I knew at that point how to mass produce them. I knew how to make them tasty. And like, they're a very low price point, so it was a really good way of kind of getting our product into the hands of the people.
What's everybody's favorite cookie?
I mean, chocolate chip.
I mean, it is by far my favorite cookie of yours, but you make those coconut macaroons.
I mean, every cookie has like its different cult following.
Yeah.
And like almost like we call the sugar cookie with sprinkles the little girl special. And like the double chocolate with M&Ms, like the little boy cookie. You know, I feel like they all kind of have their different
Well, you're kind of testing a cookie out right now, I saw.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to me about that one a little bit.
That was kind of just our desire to like recognize that people want something that most people want something that they know. But enough people want to try something new that we're like, we will do a cookie of the month. And so we're just kind of rotating through like fun new flavors every month.
Okay. Any ones that you're like, okay, this is going to stay on the lineup?
I know some of them. Well, and it's cute because some people like petition to keep certain cookies around.
I love it. Okay. What's been the latest petition?
The frosted sugar cookie. We kept it around for 3 months because the people wouldn't let it go.
I get it.
So yeah.
I get it. I kind of like frosting on my cookies too, if I had to be honest.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Sorry, I get all excited about you talk about cookies. You've got me all excited. We're good.
You and I both.
Okay. So you do the farmer's market in 2014. Was it a success, not a success, like even wash? Like what did you learn that first year?
I mean, I think it depends how you define success. Like financially, if that is your only standard, like huge failure. Like I think I paid the people of Park City to eat our cookies. But for me, it was like we were building a brand, we were building reputation. I was building connections within the community. And like I loved what I was doing so much that like it didn't matter if I was spending 2 days preparing for the farmer's market, going to the farmer's market and leaving with like having earned nothing. You know, like it had, I don't think I started the business to make money. And so the fact that I was growing a business, it felt like a success, but it was 100% not overnight.
No, obviously. But okay, so then you have the 2014.
Yep.
You know, you're feeling like, oh, I'm well received in the community. We're gaining some traction with people. You go into the 2015 ski season to patrol again. And then what's the summer of 2015 look like?
2015 kind of looked pretty similar to the summer of 2014. We had the farmer's market at the Canyons at the time. At that point, we had gained a couple of wholesale accounts. So we were baking for Ritual Chocolate, Pink Elephant Coffee, which are like local brands in Park City.
And how did you secure those relationships?
That was just through the connections that we had built at the farmers market.
Really?
Yeah. So it was
Okay.
just like a tiny little snowball that like became a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And like, I think by 2015, Copper Moose Farm opened, and that held us accountable to figuring out how to produce things 3 days a week. Now it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, not just Wednesday. And then like truly it was just a snowball like growth of Copper Moose turned into getting like our product into the hands of more people than we could reach at the Park City Farmers Market.
Oh, definitely. I wouldn't just more days, right?
Yes.
Like if I can't make it to the farmer's market here. I know for me personally, I love it that I'm like, okay, Copper Moose sells them this day. They're at Fresh Market if I miss that. And your store is open. Okay, so her store is open next to my hair salon. So I don't book hair appointments on Mondays because I don't get a cookie that day then, okay?
Oh my gosh.
So then I make sure my hair appointments are different days. So if you own a cookie business next to a hair salon, it's a great location, but we're not there yet. We'll get there. Okay, so yeah, that gave you accountability. And when did you add the pies and the different pieces?
I mean, the pies were kind of just like meeting demand. Like part of the reason that we don't make bread is because there were already 2 fabulous bread bakeries in town. And it was like, go where the people aren't already. And so people started to ask for pies. We were already at the farmer's market, which is where like local fruit vendors go. So we had these connections within the community to like get our fruit from. So it kind of felt just like a very natural pairing. So I think pies started in 2015, and I think they really took off the following summer of 2016.
Okay. And did you know how to make pies? Like, how did you figure that piece out?
Pies, I did not know how to make until I just like
Had to
said
learn.
yes and figured it out. Yeah. But they always kind of just like clicked and happened kind of naturally. Pies, I feel like are kind of like the art of baking.
Okay.
Like there is no leavening. So it's not like you're not relying on yeast or sourdough fermentation. You're not relying on baking soda or baking powder. So they're a lot less precise. And there was something about that that just like really appealed to me. And I think really allowed for a little bit more trial and error.
Okay, so we're 2014, 2015, 2016. When you're doing this in the summer, is this your only summer job then?
Okay.
Or do you have to supplement?
2014, 2015, I had to supplement.
Okay.
2016, I pulled the plug on my summer job,
Okay.
committed full-time to baking,
Yep.
but knew that I had my wintertime job
To
to
replenish.
pay the bills.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Were you living pretty frugally at that point to just make everything work?
Yeah, super frugally. Back to like the 2008 nightmare that essentially happened to the American economy. That's when I graduated college.
Okay.
That's when I moved to Denver, Colorado. I was looking for a job. I knew no one. I could find nothing. And it was a really hopeless, scary feeling. But the thing that it taught me was how to be extremely frugal. And I am really grateful for that. So yeah, like I just kind of, saved money wherever I could and spent money as little as possible.
I think that frugal experience is so important for all of us because when we know how little you can live on
yes.
and make it work,
Yeah.
it gives you the confidence to have a risk.
Yeah.
Because like, okay, well, if this blows up, I mean, ramen noodles supported
Yes,
me.
Totally,
I'm okay.
Totally. It's like, I know I can live off of rice and beans. And so it is
Yes.
that's such a great point. That confidence of like how little it actually requires.
Yeah.
Yeah. Life.
As we sit in this house right now, and it makes me puke sometimes because I'm like, but
No,
still,
but like-
you know what I'm saying though? Like you're just like, wow, it's so amazing the range of what we can make things work and be happy.
Yeah, I know. I feel like there's so many lines about that, but I feel like Sheryl Crow has a great one. And it's like, it's not having what you want, it's wanting what you have. And it's like, yeah, identifying what you want and
just being okay. Like that's what brings you joy, that thing. And then you're good.
yeah.
Okay. So that's a big year of 16 of being like, okay, we're going to make this work. And were you ever at a point where like, I hate these cookies because I'm like barely making it work? Or you just like found so much joy in the process of doing that you were okay?
I mean, I 100% had like
Moments.
some moments of like, if I hadn't accepted payment and promised somebody a product, like I'm not sure if I would have kept going. But I think like digging deep, finding that perseverance to keep going when times were tough is also so confidence inspiring. Have you ever heard like, don't quit on a bad day?
Yeah.
It's like, it's really confidence inspiring to keep going till that good day and like reassessing at that point. I mean, I think some of like the biggest challenges that made me really question whether I wanted to keep going had to do with our kitchen insecurity, because two different times we like had the rug completely pulled out from under us.
Yeah, so bring us to one of those. So it's 2016, you go all in. Because at one point I saw you at the Kimball Art Center, maybe, right? Did you have a kitchen before that?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we rented a bagel shop kitchen
Okay.
in Pine Brook.
Yeah.
And that was really great to like just start small, like wade into the pool instead of diving headfirst into the deep end and then having to act out of desperation. So we showed up on January 1st of 2017. And I say we, but it was strictly just me at this point.
Right, but we feels comfortable. I do a we a lot of times too. I'm like, we, and like, who's the we? And I'm like, it's just, it feels better than a me. Okay?
I know.
It
Well, at
does.
this point, it's so much more than just me that it feels wrong just taking all the credit. It feels much better than just me. Walked into the bagel shop kitchen on January 1st, only to be told like, oh, hey, the bagel shop sold. You're no longer welcome here. And I had a business that was relying on that. Yeah, so it was like, you know, just that panic scramble of like figuring it out. And I do think that that's one thing I've always been pretty good at, is being like flexible and nimble and quick on my feet when that pressure is applied. And so we figured it out. We got a short-term lease back at the bagel shop. And then that is what led to the Kimball Art Center, which was kind of our first step in our own space. And I say our own, even though we were like a 300 square foot kitchen out of a community art center.
Right. But still, I mean, you were the kitchen for the community art center.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Right.
And I came for the food, not the art. So there you go.
I think, yes, it happened once again with the Kimball Art Center during COVID, where we were set to move with them and plans changed overnight. And so yet again, we were looking for a life raft. Yeah. And we found one, luckily, mercifully, at the Market Park City.
Okay.
And we stayed there for almost 2 years while we then found our own, I would say, permanent home.
Yeah. I'm taking a deep breath because I know, like, in the heat of those, it is,
Totally.
because you want to make a smart decision, even though there's pressure on you to make a decision right away. So what did you do to stay calm in that storm?
I mean, I don't know that I did stay calm in that storm, but like, how did I stay afloat in that storm? I think just kind of like tackling the problems that I could tackle and not allowing myself to get overwhelmed by the things that were out of my control.
Oh, you guys, listen to that, right? Like tackling the problems I could tackle and letting things that I couldn't out of my control, out of my mind. Like, I think that's so significant for all of us in whatever pursuit we're doing. But for me, like when I go in the crazy zone, my body wants to like just 1,000% commit and not like come up for air until I have it solved. And as I've gotten older, so old now, I feel I need to like condense it and say, okay, like I'm allowed to give this an hour, but then I need to go for a walk and get away from it. And I need that space to make smart decisions, because otherwise the longer I spend on something honed in, I don't know if I always make the best decision. So it's hard to do in the moment, but I've had enough circumstances where it's paid off that now I can remind myself. I'm like, I know it doesn't feel like I want to, but this is what I should. And then I do it.
Yeah, I feel like I had an English teacher in college who like gave me totally different advice than what I'd heard up until that point. And he was like, if you are reading a page and you are like, it's not absorbing, stop reading. And I feel like that with life too, where you're like, I am trying so hard to solve this problem, but it's not working. Sometimes you do just need to like force yourself to take that break and come back to it with a fresh perspective.
Yeah. Okay, so like, how is it being a baker, right? And, or like whatever it is, but now you're negotiating, like there's so many skills that you have to have, right? So are you relying on yourself, or have you built relationships in the community where you're like, hey, I need to negotiate this space, can you help me? Or how have you had other people step in where you're not maybe as strong?
So definitely both. Like I've had to gain strength in places that I have definite weakness. However, it's also kind of cool to recognize where your limitations are and kind of just like fall back on the expertise of the community around you. And I do feel like Park City especially, and like the world as a whole, is like a supportive place that wants us to be happy. And it's really cool to just kind of like fall back on that safety net. And I have a friend who's like, just fall back and the universe will touch you. Like, I don't know if I can really just fall with the universe blindly like that. But like when you start to kind of like test that net and see that it's there. So in terms of like negotiating contracts, like, I mean, it's just like really cool when you're like, hey, I see this commercial space is available. Like, who can I call to help me? And like, you make a couple phone calls and maybe that wasn't the exact path, but that's like sends you nudges you down the right direction.
Right.
And then suddenly like the path opens up that was not there before.
No, and I think that's so important what you just said there, because you have to be in action for other things to open up. And for example, like I've never had it in my mind that I was going to set a world record in mountaineering. Like that wasn't even a thought. But it started with, I'm going to climb this mountain. It changed into, you're going to climb Everest, because my son thought this mountain was silly. And then the coach that trained me for Everest was like, hey, have you thought about this? And so when we have these things that we're doing and other people will give advice, or like, now I know, or here's what you should do, or like it's becomes so much bigger and better because the idea you put in motion, but you allowed flexibility for it to evolve.
Absolutely. And I love that too, where it's like that flexibility to kind of like, let life evolve, and like to not just be so rigid on this path of like, I'm not sure what like rigid would have looked like on your path, but had you just been like, I am only climbing Everest, like you would not be here today. And that's so cool that,
Yeah. No, I think of, and for me, that goal, I think before this whole mountaineering pursuit, the goal was like all of it. And then on this mountaineering pursuit for me, because there were so many little goals along the way, like climb this one and then climb that one and climb that one, like each little journey had so much significance and impact on who I was. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm on the top of that mountain for 10 minutes. The reality is this whole thing is this section, not this section. So how do I focus on this section to make it more enjoyable and playful and inclusive and fun? And yeah, that was a big shift for me.
Well, and that's such a great metaphor for life too.
Totally.
Like super sidebar, but a customer was in the bakery who's from Chicago, who I think very much is that like that mindset that I grew up around of like, you work your traditional white collar job, your 9 to 5, Monday through Friday until retirement. And that's when your life begins. And he mentioned something about like, didn't you get your, like your life fix while you were on ski patrol? And I just feel like it's such a destination mindset instead of enjoying the journey. And I know it's a balance, because you can't just be like YOLO and like not prepare for a future.
Right.
But I think like finding that way to be joyful on the smaller segments, not just the 10 minutes at the top of the mountain, are so important for life.
Yeah. So and what I like about your story too is you started as ski patrol and this was a side hustle. When did it become a year-round hustle, and how did you phase out of patrol?
I think it was the year 2000. Actually, it was 2020 because it was COVID. At that point, I had gotten down to just like 2 days a week on ski patrol. And that was really my like climbing without a rope at that point, where it's like, okay, I feel confident. Like I've finally built this business that is paying the bills, and I can drop the rope for ski patrol. And it was definitely scary, but kind of to your point about like, it's really nice to be able to thrive with simplicity. Like I knew I had a job I could go back to if baking didn't work out.
That is nice, right? Like, you're like, okay, they always need patrol. I have experience. I have good relationships. So if I needed to come back in, they'd help. I would have that door.
I always had that fallback. And I think at some point, like my mother-in-law was like, you aren't going to have all these opportunities your whole life. Like at some point you need to swing. And what is the phrase? Like strike out watching in baseball or strike out looking. And I was like, I don't want to look back on regret of like, I had built all this business, I had all this momentum and I didn't jump. And so at some point it was just kind of like terrifying, but the time to go all in.
Yeah. Ah, that's awesome. Okay, so how long have you been in the new location that you are?
We have been there since February of 23, so about a year and a half.
A year and a half. And how much has that just like eased everything?
It's insane. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy. And like I think about all the sleepless nights that led up to that of like the construction decisions, the construction costs, like the construction nightmares. And it's like all those times that I was like wanting so badly to turn back on that decision. And now I'm just so grateful that we didn't and we made it to like just this, like it's 900 square feet. It's little, but it's purpose built for us. And so we have like really great systems that allows me to share the burden of operating a business with like not just the people, but also the place. And so, yeah, it's really made life so much simpler.
Yeah, I think it's funny when we're building things and we're like, okay, well, this is helping here. This is like, you don't realize how much space something is taking up in your life. And so all of a sudden you don't have to worry about that anymore or have that in the back of your mind. And you're like, holy cow, that lived rent-free.
Yes.
But that was not rent-free. That was expensive. Like, I am so glad I let that go and I have this thing and we hustled through it because it's a different level of breath now. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like taking off a heavy pack on like a backpacking trip. Where you're like, I did not even realize how much that was weighing me down until you take it off. And it is just like.
And it's cool too, because you had different kitchens that you worked in. So then when you were designing your own, you kind of knew the flow and the workspace to be able to come up with that, I'm guessing, right?
Totally. And like by operating as like, operating as a bakery in a deli kitchen or a cookie shop out of a bagel shop, like we were a square peg in a round hole for a long time. So we figured out how to make like places that didn't work, like places that weren't built for us work for us. So we were like really dialed on what we wanted, why we wanted it, and like how to work efficiently.
Yeah. Okay, so now how many days are you working in the bakery?
I am still working 5 days a week for the most part. Like in the spring and the fall, the shoulder seasons in Park City, I try to take maybe like 3 or 4 day weekends, but I'm still like pretty full time. My role within that has definitely shifted. Now I'm kind of in more of like an overseeing role.
Okay.
And also dishes. Just kind
so
of like,
fun.
the behind the scenes things that are required to
like
keep
what
it.
needs to get done that no one wants to do. They're like, fine, I'll do it.
And I mean, it's kind of by design. Like I really am loving like the new role of actually like operating a business, not just like making cookies.
Yeah, right? I mean, I think a lot of us get into a job at first and we're just self-employed, right? And that transition from self-employed to running a business is an interesting transition because you have to learn to let go.
Yes.
Which is so hard.
No, I'm still struggling with that,
I mean, it's a thing, like it's a dance for sure. And then, for me for a while, I'd finally hire somebody and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll give it to them. And, then they had a baby or something and I'm like, and now I have to take it back on. And then it makes you even more reluctant to hand it off in the future because you're just like, oh, I don't want to put somebody through this training and not have them stay and all that jazz. So how many people are helping you right now make it go?
Our whole crew total, including myself, is 7 people. On any given day, it's generally 4 of us working. 3 in the kitchen, 1 in the front.
Yeah. And I mean, that's hard too, right? Like having enough people and the dynamics of everybody getting along and.
Yeah. And I think honestly, the most challenging part within like staffing is kind of unique to Park City in like the fluctuating economy with the shoulder seasons, because you don't like have enough work for people 4 months of the year, maybe even 5 months of the year. But then the other 6 or 7.
You can't have enough work.
Exactly. And so it's like, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot if you staff up, because then in the spring, you're like stressed keeping people busy. So that part is kind of hard. And I think we found a sweet spot that like, I think 4 people on any given day is the right amount for handling business, well, like handling fluctuating business levels.
Okay. How did you get into, like, do you see yourself expanding into other grocery stores? Because I know you're in Fresh Market, but because you're in Fresh Market, does that mean you're not allowed to be in Smith's?
Right.
Or Whole Foods or anything like that?
I honestly think it just has to do with like the larger corporate markets don't have the small independent businesses.
Okay.
And I mean, we're kind of like, for so long, I was so focused on growing and getting somewhere else than where we were that it feels really nice to just like take a deep breath and enjoy where we've gotten to.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great place to be. I think a lot of us struggle with that, right? Like there's like, oh, I want to be here. I want to be here. I want to be here. And we forget like, I used to want to be here.
Right.
And it's pretty dang cool to be here. So let's not forget to enjoy this moment.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And because of the pie, like what's bigger? Banana bread, cookies, or pie?
I mean, we would be exclusively banana bread if the people could.
I hear you. Believe me.
But honestly, it's probably like a third.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I bet it is if you like broke down every single, and I don't know like how much of the portion of sales cookies make up for.
Okay.
I know like on any given day, you know, we're probably making 500 cookies and 50 pies, and we max out at 33 loaves of banana bread.
That's interesting. Huh. I like it. And the banana bread and the cookies you can ship.
We can.
Anybody who's watching, when you get this episode released, we can ship those to you. We'll give you the details for sure. And the pies you do seasonally.
Yes.
Right? Based on what's fresh and stuff. And I do remember talking to you one day, which I thought was really interesting, about how you've been manipulating the pie recipe a little bit to add less sugar than what you originally started. And how often are you playing with those recipes, or do you feel like now we have them dialed?
No, I never feel like we have it dialed because fruit is like, its ripeness changes. You know, like if you eat a green banana, it's way less sweet than a brown banana. And that is true for like all fruit, like berries as well. So like sometimes the same amount of sugar is very sweet in a blueberry pie versus like if the berries are less ripe. So that's like a constantly moving target, which kind of keeps us on our feet.
Oh, it does. I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And so I am like in general pretty conscious about what I eat. And so I try not to just like throw as much sugar. We try to, if anything, do as little sugar as possible and then come back to like, okay, what do people actually want to eat? And I would say we're thinking about that and trying to tweak for improvement all the time.
All the time.
But also not like such drastic changes that people are like, this is a different cookie.
Right. Fair. Okay, so where you are now,
Yes.
what would you tell your younger Emily, like from 2014?
I mean, it's crazy. So oftentimes, like so many times I stop and think about like, if you would have told me in 2014 where I am now, like I wouldn't have believed you.
Really?
Yeah. And I think I would just say, keep going. And I heard like some really great advice from Elizabeth Gilbert on the radio one time. I know, I do too. Yes. And she was like, people always ask me like, how do I find my passion? And her response was like, if you have a passion, you probably don't have to search for it. She was like, my advice is follow your curiosity. And so I think I would say exactly that, of like, follow your curiosity, like say yes and figure it out. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Just like jump in there or wade in there, which is definitely my approach, but like get in that pool and figure it out. And just keep going.
Just keep swimming.
Yeah,
Just keep swimming. Thank you, Nemo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so right now you're happy and you're sitting good. Do you have any vision of what like an ideal future would look like? Or
I mean, honestly, I think if we were to take a next step, I would love to kind of like right now I feel like we're more of a locals business than a tourist business, but like tourism is Park City's greatest economy. And so I would love to have like a sugar shack on a ski resort. And like
a sugar shack. Yeah. That's a great idea.
That would be like just like some cute little like shipping container or something, just a tiny little thing with warm oven that we rewarm cookies and sell it to you at the bottom of a chairlift. And so I think like baked goods are tough because they don't have this forever shelf life. I think when you start like mass producing and like selling, like you're selling older products. So I think it's always going to be important to keep it close. And I think just expanding in the Park City area is kind of my next.
Oh, I think that's fun.
Step.
I like that.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I have sons. When you are in busy season that you need to put on dishes, I'm bringing them to you.
I mean, it's definitely, there's a lot. a lot of dishes. And
No, I can only imagine. All right. So if somebody's listening today and you did give us tips for your younger self, but they're in it, they have this business and they have like those moments of doubt. Earlier you said, like, don't make decisions when on a bad day. But what other things could you give them to kind of like keep in mind when things aren't going awesome to stay the course?
that's so hard because I think that doubt can be such a loud voice. But I think like for every low, there's an equal high. And so I think to just keep like searching for that high.
I like that. For me, when I look at my hard times, I write down, I took journal. I journaled my times. And now that I can look back at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so dramatic. And so you just realize if you've documented it, which I think it's really important to document what we're doing and what we're feeling and how we're processing, because then when that feeling comes up again, you're like, oh, this isn't the first time I've been here. I've been here before. This is how it worked out. And we just get those stories on speed dial that allow us to process things faster. Where if we don't document, everything to me feels so much more overwhelming, right? And not all of us have that path that like, hey, you become attorney and you do X, Y, or Z. Like these are creative fields that we bring into existence and just learning how to navigate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think like to that point, like just remembering like this too shall pass. And like those really low moments may seem to last forever, but it is like always so eye-opening in hindsight. You're like, I was in such a bad place for 2 days.
I don't know. Like I look at my mountain experiences, right? I'm like, oh my God, the weather was terrible. We were going to die and blah, 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 blah. And then we summited and it was sunny and life's over. Yeah, totally. That's awesome. Okay. So if people want to order from you or visit you, like how do we find you on the web?
We have a website. It's auntiemspc.com.
Okay.
And there's an order now tab and a cart, and it's just like any other online shopping experience.
Perfect. And you have an Instagram account?
Yeah, we have Instagram. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Happy to have you. There's Auntie M. I'm telling you, she brought me banana bread today, so we're going to have that after this episode. Please visit her in Park City. And if you're not in town, feel free to order. You will not regret it.